Happy mid-July. I saw something the other day that said in less than 6 months, we'll be closer to 2040 than we were 2010 or 2000, I guess is what it was. It's hard to believe if you think about it that way. It seems like yesterday we were just getting started together. I've been here 11 years, and some days it seems like forever ago, and some days it seems like just yesterday. As I look around the room, it seems like just yesterday because I see some of the same faces and names that I saw 11 years ago that had 30 and 40 years experience, and they're still sitting here. And that's great. And my point is, not to be funny, my point is that we have people who have over 30 and 40 years experience in this room today who came to learn. So if you're under 5 or 10 or 20 years experience, think about that for a second. We've got people with 30 and 40 years experience who came to learn and came to get better and they came to help. That's pretty awesome. But that's part of education. That's part of what makes us better is we're always willing to learn no matter what our age is. We find ways to get better. We find ways for ourselves to get better. This is one. But this is just one step of that process. How good you become is on you. How much time, how much energy, how much effort you put in to being better, that's on you. Reading the rules, studying the rules, passing the test, making a high score on the ratings exam in a few weeks, that's just one phase up. That's just one phase. The biggest phase is what do you do on Friday nights? What do you do on Thursday nights? How good are you there? Because see, I can tell you there's a lot of things I'll tolerate, but you telling me when I call and say, hey, what happened here? What happened here? What happened here? In the same game, and your response ends up eventually getting to, well, I'm a good official. Look at my rating. I'm one of the top 10 in my position. Look at me. We can't argue the fact that the rating system has you at this number. But what we can have a conversation about is what I'm watching on film right here tells me a whole different picture. And that's what matters. That's what matters the most. See, it's just like people that want to quote scripture. We want to quote scripture. We want to quote scripture. Do you live that life? I can quote it to you, but do you live that way? I'm a high-ranking official. Great. Are you a high-ranking official when it matters? When the game's going on, are you a high-ranking official? That's what I want. So what I'm telling you is, those of you that go make a great score, great. But continue to be great. Those of you that don't go make a great score in a few weeks, okay, be great. That's what I care about. I can promise you when I see a clip that we have an issue with, I don't go to each name and go to your ratings and say, well, that makes sense. He made a 74 on a test. That doesn't fly with me. I just want to know why we missed it. In some cases, we missed it because the camera has a much better angle than you do on the field. When you walk in those doors over there right now, it looks like this room, there's not a seat in the house. There's not one open. When I'm on floor level right over there, which is a vision and an angle you would have as an official, right? Floor level, straight through this angle, just like a wing or a back judge or a referee would have. I don't get to be elevated and look down. When you stand in over there on those doors, correct me if I'm wrong, you look through here, it looks like there are very few empty seats. When you get up here where I'm at, elevated, and you can see the whole field, guess what? I see a whole row of empty seats, almost a whole row, and almost a whole row, and several over here. Perception has changed. Perspective has changed. So understand the camera's going to catch things that you don't. But there's certain things the camera can't. The camera can't miss. And I'm going to get to this in a second. Certain things you can't miss. And I tell our state finals officials this right here every single year they work. And any one of them that's worked the last 7 years will tell you, yes, he says this in the pregame meeting of the state championship. This is the words of wisdom I give the crew before they do a pregame and go on the field. Train wrecks and cars on fire. That is what we cannot miss. What is a train wreck and what is a car on fire? Think about it this way. If you drove here today and on the other side of the interstate, there was a car on fire, What did everybody on your side do? Slow down and look. Nobody missed it. Nobody passed that car on fire and said, I never saw the car on fire on the side of I-26. Nobody. Everybody saw it. Train wreck. Everybody sees it. You can't miss it. It's obvious. It's right in front of your face. These are two things in life on the road you don't have to go look for. They just happen. You see it. You know it. It's there. Bam. Just like 12 men on the field. Just like false start, just like encroachment, just like a penalty that's in space. Right? Those are all the things we just can't miss. Two men in motion at the same time. Illegal shifts. These are things that my mother, who's watched a lot of football, but her limited football knowledge would tell me, wasn't that a penalty? Yep, sure it was. This is the one the grandmother says, I think that was a foul. It was. How do we miss it? I don't know. I don't know. Because these are ones that we don't miss. These are the ones that if we just focus on these things, the train wrecks and the cars on fire, the things that are obvious, that everybody in the field can see, everybody from every vantage point, every angle can see. If we focus on this, you'll end up with anywhere from 8 to 20 fouls in the first week of the season because they're not as sharp. But as the season goes, the fouls will condense down. And then the major stuff you won't miss because you're not looking for those major things now. The major things happen. They hit you in the face. The inadvertent face mask, the grasping and pulling of a face mask. You see that. You don't look for that. The block below the waist in the interior line. You see that now because you're not focused on it. It just happens and you see it. But we don't miss these because what happens is we miss these things. We miss these fouls. What happens is the coaches lose credibility with you. How do you flag me for being on the field outside of my box when the ball's on the 15 going into the end zone? How do you flag me looking back 30 yards away for that? But 6 plays before, they had 13 guys on the field and y'all missed it. 6 plays before, their receiver literally took off 3 steps before the ball was snapped. How do you miss that? How do you miss the tailback coming out of his position before the ball snapped? How do you miss their right tackle pulling and grabbing my defender and ripping him to the ground around his body? How do you miss that? That's the questions I get. How do they get all these other major things, but we miss the easy ones? I don't have an answer for that, folks. So my advice is if we catch the train wrecks and the cars on fire, the other stuff that happens will happen. If we catch it, we catch it. If we miss it, we miss it. But at the end of the day, 95% of the people that were at that football game are going to go home feeling like there was a job well done, including yourself. When we get into trouble is when we start looking for things that aren't going to be there to be there. We start creating fouls. We start creating in our mind what's the foul's going to be. And then we become problem makers. I've said it for years. You know who your biggest problem creator is on the field, right? You know who that is, right? Who? There's 5 of you. There's 5 of you. You all get there at 6 o'clock for a 7:30 start. You all have 30 to 45 minutes in the locker room together, and you all work together on that field. There's 5 of you that create that problem. Be good on the field. Catch the obvious stuff. Don't miss what you were taught not to miss when you first got started. Catch everything that's obvious. Train wrecks and cars on fire. Okay? All right, I'm going to run you through really quick the assigning process and how we assign, just so you know. And this is nothing more than informational. I think I did this last year, and if not last year, I did it a couple years ago. But I want to make sure we're all on the same page because every year people get frustrated and say, well, Charlie does this, and Charlie does that, and Charlie does this. I'm going to show you what Charlie does. Charlie reviews it before it goes out. This is what Jill does. That's it. All the work to what's in there is in there before we ever get started. Okay? So what it works is there are what we call variables. We have fixed variables, and then we have variables that move. Okay? When I talk about variables, this is an arbiter. Okay? This is in our arbiter system. All right? Our fixed variables. Where do you live? Okay, what zip code do you live in? That matters. All right, because we're going to take from the middle of that zip code and we're going to go 75 miles in every radius around you. That's your area. That's your natural area where you could get assigned. Okay. Now, if I live in Anderson, where I'm from, and I draw a circle 75 miles around Anderson, it ends up somewhere near Athens, Georgia. Well, the South Carolina High School League don't assign in Georgia. So you figure that out. If I live near a border, your circle stops. So your 75-mile radius kicks out one direction. If you live, say, in, I don't know, Calhoun Falls, and literally you wake up one morning and walk out your back door, you're in Georgia, right? Which means you only have a radius that goes this way, 75 miles. You follow me? So when some of you get to a week and you say, well, I don't know why I don't have a game, sometimes it comes down to how many games are in your area. How many games are open inside of 75 miles? Now, there are times where we will stretch some people and say, hey, we have 3 openings 80 miles away, and this guy right here is sitting there at 80. We can use him at that. That makes sense. But when you're sitting there with no assigned game, and I've got an opening, but it's 160 miles away, I've got to make that make sense. That's when we get involved in the personal side. We start moving people here, moving people there to create an opening for you inside of 75 miles. So it's not always about the school. It's about trying to find people to cover the schools. So that's 2 fixed variables, where you live and the mileage. Then we got blocks. And we got blocks, right? We got blocks. What are blocks? Well, who do you want to work for? Who can't you work for? Who doesn't want you to work for them? Who doesn't want to work for you? Who doesn't want to work with you? The longer your block rap sheet goes, less likely you are to get assigned. And that's just the reality of it. I can't fix that for you. You should block where you went to high school. I graduated there in 1985. I haven't lived there since 1985. I don't care. The perception becomes, when they find you on social media, that you graduated from there in the class of 1985, that you cheated us in week 3 because you're a graduate. That doesn't mean it's actual, it's just the perception. We're saving you from the perception. Okay? We talked about the mileage. Limiting mileage. Some people get creative. I don't want to drive 75 miles on a Friday night. I appreciate that, I respect that, and I understand why. But you understand, when you start limiting your mileage south of 75, you limit your opportunities. You limit your opportunities. Going in and creating your mileage to set at 130 because you don't mind driving isn't going to take you over 75. We set it on our end, the assigning process, at 75. So then we have some blocks that talk about the dates. We have blocks that talk about the locations. You've got, we talked about school blocks. Some of you block a date. Sometimes you don't want to work a date. Whatever reason, you block a Friday. I don't want to work. Okay, understand. Sometimes you block dates up until 5:30, 6 o'clock. Well, the system's smart enough to know that if you block a date, if you block a Friday until 5, and you've got a 60-mile radius to drive, it knows that 60 is going to take you probably over an hour to get there, and it knows you need to be there at 6. So it's not going to assign you to anything that's going to take you an hour to get to on a normal mileage, if that makes sense. It'll say you can't make it, and they just want to assign it. Nothing I've done is Charlie or Jill making a decision on you. Everything in there is done before we ever get involved. Uh-oh. Technical problems here. I don't know what's going on, Doc, but so I didn't mean to bring your email up either. What we got?
Thank you. Good.
No. So we take all these fixed variables, then we have the unfixed variables, the ones that we can't control, but they happen, right? Who you work for inside the last 2 weeks. Because what we try to do is not assign you to the same school inside of 2 Friday nights. In other words, I don't get to go work at Westside High School last night, and then the next 2 Fridays, I'm going to get Westside at Spartanburg. We try to prevent that so it's not consistently happening. There are situations where our system doesn't catch it for whatever reason. And one of those we found is that a lot of our schools are putting in, when they play non-member schools, they're putting in TBA as an opponent. Well, the TBA is the opponent you get assigned to the next week. Arbiter doesn't catch that because what Arbiter reads is TBA. So that TBA was Westside High School. The next week, I got assigned to a game at Westside High School. I got them twice in the same week. That's when we need you as an official to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, look, I had them last Friday and I got them next week too. So we can say, oops, let's fix this. Because we can't read the system. Sometimes I can't tell you who the TBAs are because I don't know when we do it. Then we have a situation where we talk about games per week. Some of you set your game max per week. How many games can you have? Will you work? Let me give you an example. I set it at 4 games a week. Okay, and we try in our office to book 2 weeks in advance. We try. Okay, but some of your directors, they're better than us. They book a month in advance. And you've set your game max at 4 a week. So we get to a week where we're about to book. Your director's already assigned. You've already accepted. You got middle school, a middle school on Wednesday, a B team on Thursday, and a JV on Thursday you have accepted. How many games is that? 4. 2 middle school, a B team, and a JV. That's 4. You set your game week max in football at 4. Guess what Arbiter doesn't do? Doesn't assign you to Friday night because you're already at 4. That creates us problems because what we then do is we see we got a bunch of openings. And the beautiful part about it is we can look and run a report that shows us who doesn't have a game and why, right? We can look and say who doesn't have a game and why. Well, when I look and I see Charlie Wentzky doesn't have a game and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, why? It tells me why by the code that it has in there, all the different letters and formulas. And the only reason is game max. I just look at your game week and I say, it isn't assigned a varsity game. Okay, that makes sense. He's got this game set at 3. His director's ahead of us working. We just need to go in, override, and put him on a game. That's easy. Then usually we end up trying to call the director and say, hey, look, tell this person to open their game max up to 6 or 7. That way we don't get into this problem again. Okay? There's sometimes we miss you. I tell you all this because there's sometimes that we miss you, not because we're trying to miss you. It's just because the way that all the variables work, it worked against you. Not a human. And then we talk about pending versus published, right? Pending versus published. A pending assignment is sitting there waiting to go. It is the kickoff team standing on the sideline waiting for you to blow the whistle and bring them out to start the game. They're huddled up with the coach. They're sitting there waiting. It is them lined up. They're waiting on the referee's whistle to blow and say, kick. That is pending. Published is when it's kicked. It's off. Ball's in the air, we're starting. That's published. Published means you can hit the button that says accept. Up until that point, it's It is not official. I tell you that because there's times we have to make changes when things are pending because it's best for everybody, not what's best for you. So you get word or you get some info from somebody that says, oh, you're pending at this game, and you get all excited, then it gets published 2 hours later and you're not there. Sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it's we had to fill other positions at other spots that caused us to move a lot of people to get the whole thing published. Does that make sense? When you put it all together, you have all your variables in place. Schools have put the schedule in. We have all our registered certified officials. All your variables are in place. We then have it by week. All those variables, Jill hits auto assign. There's a button in Arbiter for our end that says auto assign. She hits it and it begins to run. And it tells us auto assign will be done in X number of minutes or hours. Usually it's minutes. She runs it. If every position gets filled, da 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 da, she says, okay, we're good. She hits publish. But it never happens that way. Never happens that way. There's always what I call holes, which means there's openings. And the openings require the work. The openings require her to get on the phone and call directors and say, hey, you're seeing the pending, who doesn't have a game? Help us out. Then we publish. Any questions? Any questions on the assigning process? Listen, this is not Charlie sitting in some curtained office trying to figure out how he can stick it to some of y'all. This is a computer that's telling itself how to work based on everything put in on the outside before it ever happens. I don't personally sit and select who's going to go work the Dorman Spartanburg week 9, 8-0 versus 8-0 region champ, number 1 versus number 2 game. I don't sit there and count who needs to be on that. I don't sit and count who works the Irmo Dutch Fork game person by person by person. Computer does. That's what we do all year. That's what we do all year. And I certainly don't sit there, and I won't name any names. We talk about schools that aren't very good, and pick personally who's going to go work the 0-9 versus the 0-9 homecoming game down the 74 miles down the one-way road with no gas stations between where you started and where you're going. Okay? And I've had a lot of y'all say, man, you stuck it to me this year. You've sent me down that same highway. Every time I pull out my driveway, I get on the same highway and I drive the same dusty roads by the same places. The only difference is every 15 miles, there's a new school. And you've sent me all the way to the end and all the way back. And now I'm working my way back to the end again. You know, my response to that is, computer just don't like you this year. And it has nothing to do with me. And I tell you that, and genuinely, honestly, it really has nothing to do with us personally. I don't sit and recount where all you've been that year. Bottom line is, you got a game, go work. Where you're going that night, that is the most important football game to those folks there. It should be to you as well. There's not a kid on that field that thinks there's a more important game somewhere else. There's not a parent in the stands that thinks there's a more important game somewhere else. I can promise you. Go be the best you are where you are. Let that handle itself. Any questions? Okay, great. Succeeding spot. Can't read very well on this screen. Succeeding spot. Let me hop down here. I can see the screen a little better. So there's no change to the definition of succeeding spot, but there is that piece where the editorial committee took out that word subsequent on kickoff, right? So you go read this definition of succeeding spot, it's going to be the same application. We've just taken out that word subsequent kick. That makes sense? So a foul on a scoring play can be officiated or penalized and accepted on the try or the succeeding spot, right? And then the definition is in Rule 2 for what that is. And then you notice at the very end, it says, succeeding spot may, at the option of the offended team, be the what? subsequent kick. Well, it's the same application. Don't get confused. Don't say, oh, well, they took that word subsequent kick, so we can't put it there. No, it says succeeding spot. Then you go read what succeeding spot is, and it tells you can still do it the same way. That make sense? It makes sense now, right? It made more sense when it said, or the subsequent kick, right? That's what it made the most sense. What they've done editorially is they've just made it more difficult for you to apply this foul. Now you got to go back and read what succeeding spot is when before it just straight out told you where to put it. Okay? The other piece this change does is it carries it over into overtime now. It carries it into overtime. Where we've never carried a foul into overtime, now it does. But you think about this, what has to happen? We have to score on the last play of regulation. The try either ties it because it was good, or the mistry keeps the score tied. So look at the variables that are happening here. Last play of the game. The try either makes it and ties it, or the mistry keeps us tied. How many of y'all in your officiating careers have ever had that? Raise them high. So why do we spend time worried about it? Well, it may happen. It may. But the collective experience, if I just took these first two rows right here of your collective experience as an official, and you've never seen that, probably tells you the likelihood you're going to see it. Now, we all know what I just did, right? Week 0, you're going to have 7 of these in this state. Okay? We will have 7 in this state, week 0. So if they score on the last play of the game, the last time down we score, or untimed, right? Last play, and there's a foul on the defense or the offense. Well, the offense, they should be accepting it and bringing the play back if it's a live ball foul, right? But if it's, say it's a foul on the defense, we're going to carry it over to the try or first spot in overtime. So the difference could be first and goal from the 5 or first and goal from the 25. Right? Any questions? We've talked about those. Rule changes. Our rule changes are really easy this year. If you were solid on the rules last year, you should be even more solid this year because the rules haven't changed. Play cards, they can wear them on their belt. These are the wristbands they wear that have, 444. Now they can wear them down here if they want to. Simple enough. No harm, no foul. Head slap, no player may use the hands to slap the opponent's head. It used to say no defensive player. Now it just says no player. What we were seeing in this state, a lot of clips a year, not a lot, we'd see a few a year, that offensive tackle on a screen pass would take that step back and slap the head and then move up. And all they were doing was pushing that rush end out to get him out of the way to create that angle. And then he's getting downfield to block for that screen pass coming underneath. That's 90% of what we have. This just keeps them both in the same rule code. Any questions? Arguments over how to apply that foul. If the offensive player did it before, this just makes it easy. You can't slap an opponent in the head with the intention of slapping them in the head. Any questions on the rule changes? Those are long and mighty, I know. Okay. Game-ending procedure. This is editorial changes. Sorry about that. Your authority, essentially, you know this. This is kind of one of those things that they've kind of made a few things in editorial. Things we've known, they just made it written. Some states struggle with the enforcement of some things because now everybody wants to get an attorney and everybody wants to run it up the ladder of the state house and they want to take it to the Supreme Court. They want to get all these interpretations of what we all know the rules are and the rules say. But then somebody sits there and says, it doesn't exactly say it that way. Well, this is just some way to codify it to say this is exactly what it says. Your jurisdiction is terminated and the final score has been approved when all game officials have left the visual confines of the playing area. We always knew that and understood that. But the visual confines means you're gone. Right? And what I highly encourage all of y'all to do when the game's over is to drop your head and run off the field. Don't walk and backpedal and wait for, something to happen. Just get together, decide where you're going to meet when the game's over to get to where you got to get there together and get off the field. Go get on the van, the bus, the car, or go into the locker room. Don't wait. Disqualified player, we've always known this. They can remain in the sideline area. We've known that. We've told our schools that forever. A kid that's disqualified or ejected, they can stay in the team box. They just can't participate anymore. So please don't tell them to send them home. Send them to the bus. Now, if a disqualified or ejected player continues to be an issue, we need to tell the coach, hey, look, you got to get control of this person, and we got to get rid of them at that point in time. That's probably only going to happen on Thursday nights, mostly. Your Friday nights, they got 8 to 10 coaches most places, or 8 to 10 people, I'll say that. Maybe not always coaches, right? They got 8 to 10 people who can help. Legal personal contact. This doesn't change the philosophy of what this rule was on defenseless player. What it does, it just reiterates that a kick returner is actually codified in that with the rule. We've known this. A lot of these editorial changes are things that we've known, we've applied, we understand, but they're just making it explicit now to say, hey, this is what we meant to. That make sense? I think we always knew that the kick returner was in that position. The basic spot, I don't know that Rule 10 will ever be clean ever again. I think we're going to see changes to that probably every year for the next 5, 6 years until we can really get it to where it should have been. But my guess is in 10 years, we'll go back to this thing called all but one. I don't know if you've heard of that concept, but we'll probably go back to something like that, will be my guess, because it's easy, or was easy. We've complicated it, but I think we've made it a little bit easier now with some changes. Illegal batting or illegal kicking by A that occurs behind the basic spot. That basic spot is the spot of the foul 4. Well, it just becomes the spot of where it happened if it happens behind the basic spot. Again, what we thought it should have been, what we know it should have been, they're just telling us what it is. There's some other editorial changes, and I hit the woman's succeeding spot in there for you, where they took out the word subsequent kick. Oh, sorry, I'm going too fast. Hitting the button the wrong way. All right, referees, there's your new delay of game signal. Some of y'all been really bad at this for a long time because y'all been doing the one on the right, and it's a new signal forever. I don't know that I've seen anybody do it this way in a long time. But on the right, the officials manual says that's your new delay of game signal. So for those of you that don't know what the delay of game signal was, there it is now. I think we'll be all right there too, right? Again, what we knew it to be, what we thought it to be, we're telling us this is what it is. And the other editorial changes, take time to go through that. I don't think anything's there. Tooth and mouth protectors, these adornments, these adoptions to it, attachments to it, they can't be on there. We're not going to every kid, sticking our face in their face looking for this. But when we see it, what do we do? Turn them off. Examples of what they can't have. It'd be a spinny fan, a pacifier, a hook. Okay. Those are attachments. Those are things that are going to be a safety violation, a safety hazard. And we talk about it and say, well, they got a face mask on, a helmet on, and we're worried about a piece of plastic hanging off the mouthpiece. Yes. Problem is that piece of plastic, because if it comes dislodged and somehow ends up in their mouth, they could swallow and choke on it. That's the medical thought. These are all legal. There's nothing that prevents them from having teeth marks, flags, colors, as long as they don't border on unsportsmanlike conduct or messaging. Again, we're not getting in their face reading this, right? We're not getting in their face saying, hey, let me see that. Arm sleeves in 2027, you're going to have it. You're going to have that SCFOA specification on it. And it's that stick. Y'all know the gloves, right? The gloves they had out years and years ago that when basically they could just, 2 fingers could catch a football in the air. because they had so much stickum on them. Well, now they've gotten smart and they put it on these arm sleeves that these ball carriers have. So when they carry it, it sticks a little bit more. They don't fumble as easily. Well, now SCFOA, the Sports Fitness Industry Association, has got to get involved and say, okay, here's the specifications for those. And they'll have to have that stamp just like the gloves have to have. And that's on the arm sleeves. Not on sleeves that come off the shoulder. It's on arm sleeves, the pull-up ones. Okay? Any questions? That's not this year. That's down the road, but this is a rule reminder. The fixed electronic signs, the non-audio, remember they can have those now on the sideline. It is a fixed signage. Now they're going to hold that sign in the ground. It's got a number, kind of like a down marker would have. Maybe 3 numbers, 4 numbers, 5 numbers. Okay? Could have a fixed image. Could have a fixed image. You know, could have a fixed image of a baseball, and that tells everybody, okay, we're running baseball this time. Line up. That makes sense. What it can't have is a scroll, and it can't have video. Any camera device or microphone, remember if they're wearing it on them, like I'm wearing right now, or anything attached to my helmet, or anything that's picking up audio or video recording on the field from a player or a coach is not allowed. Not allowed. Does not address officials. Does not address officials. I'm okay. Our officials are wearing a video or recording device. That's fine, but just know you're wearing it, and you might want to make your crew aware of it so that they just know it's happening. But it can be a great technology and educational tool if used appropriately. Okay? Illegal and improperly worn player equipment. Been a hot topic, obviously. Allegedly, the NCAA is going to start stepping up and doing something about it. Allegedly. We know the NFL has requirements for uniforms in place. Officials don't have to worry about it because they have things like $300,000 and $400,000 fines for not wearing a uniform correctly. Like, we understand that. The officials don't have to sit there and say, oh, you don't have the white sock after the colored sock or the colored sock after the white. They don't worry about that. The NFL league office catches it, they send the fine and take care of it. The player doesn't do it again. Or the player says, heck, I make enough money. I'm glad to pay that fine to wear what I want to wear. But at our level, we don't get that opportunity. If they're not legally equipped and they're not wearing equipment correctly, send their rear end off the field. They don't play. It's simple. If the knees are exposed, send them off the field. I don't care if their program has won 15 state championships in their history or they hadn't won a game in 15 years. Send them off the field. The problem we get into is that we've got a school or a couple schools that their players, they wear pants that stop literally right here all season. Then they get to the playoffs and they get people from outside their area, outside their 75 miles, who all of a sudden start enforcing it. And then what happens is, guess who the bad guys are? That week 3 playoff officiating crew is the bad guys because all they care about is uniforms. Oh, that's what they should have been doing all year. The problem is the bad guys were the ones that worked 12 weeks prior that didn't step up and do what they were supposed to do. I didn't want to get into that. I don't want to be the uniform police. You're the rule police. This is under the rules. Enforce it. Not clear. Now, I'm not saying we want to be literal Larry staring at everybody's legs and saying, oh, the pants at the very top of the knee, you got to come off every single play. Have common sense. A friend of mine once says, common sense isn't so common anymore. People aren't born with it. We understand that. But if I'm a receiver or I'm a running back or I'm a quarterback and I'm in a position where I'm moving a lot and I'm running a lot, what's going to happen to my pants? They're going to move a lot, right? They're going to move a lot. It's really easy to say, hey, son, push your pants down just a little bit for me. When I come out in that formation, I get out there wide. Hey, son, yes, sir. Push those pants down. Gotcha. They can do that. It's when they can't do that. When they can sit there, I can't make these shorts get over my knees. What should happen to me? Send me off until they can get me a pair of pants that will. right? I've got one of those streamer towels on. It's about this wide, and it hits the top of my shoe, and I've tucked it in the back of my pants. Is that legal? No. Do you have to send me off to fix that? No. What can you tell me to do? Get rid of that towel right now and hand it to you. Real simple. Not every problem of this is one you've got to send them off for. They walk out there and their entire face is painted with black eye shade. Is that legal? What do? Just send them off. Don't come back till it's fixed. And I understand we get into a difference of illegal and improperly worn and all those things, but the bottom line is send them off. They're not following the rule. Make it really easy. I know we can go on some of these. We can go straight to unsportsmanlike, but the problem becomes then we start crossing over how to handle certain situations. Just send them off. If it gets to a point where it's ridiculous and we're constantly sending players off, then the referee needs to step up. He needs to walk over to that head coach and he says, Coach, listen, the next one we send off, I'm going to assess an unsportsmanlike penalty to you. I'm giving you a warning right now. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to tell all your players to take care of what they got to take care of. But the next one on your team is going to be 15 yards assessed to you, and you'll have one more hanging on you the rest of the night. You know what's going to happen? What's going to happen? It's all going to get fixed. And you're going to have that one bad apple that ain't going to do it. And you're going to have to drop that flag and hit him with 15, and it ain't going to have a problem the rest of the year. Yes, sir.
About the coach that said, well, this is the way out. We order our uniforms the way they come.
They made a bad choice in ordering uniforms. Send them off. Yep. Send them off. Yep. Keep sending them off. There's not a coach that doesn't understand this is the requirement. And they'll tell you, oh, well, Nike makes this short hot pant. Well, that's great. You shouldn't have bought them. But I'll tell you this secret. Look at them 5 guys, 50 through 79. How many of them cats are wearing pants that stop right here? What's the answer? None. Which tells you what? That the 6'4", 180 out here is wearing a medium by choice. He ain't wearing a large like he should be. He's wearing a medium. Yeah, that medium inseam's a little bit shorter. The material's less. So when I put it on, imagine me putting on a medium pair of pants right now. It's only going to go so far. But if it stretches, it's going to get all the way to where I need it to. But what happens to the rest of the material? It comes up. If it gets to a point where it's ridiculous, go to the coach and say, this is getting ridiculous. What's ridiculous? I'm going to leave that to your judgment. I'm not going to stand here and tell you 3 consecutive plays, 6 plays in a row. I'm not going to tell you that. But ridiculous is it kills the flow of the game. We're constantly having to stop for the same situation, same issues. It only takes one time. They're going to call their buddy on Saturday, just like y'all do on Friday nights going home, and they're going to say, hey, man, I got nailed for 15 last night for our kids not wearing their uniforms correctly. They're going to call me, and they're going to say, Charlie, this ain't right. And I'm going to say, oh, yeah, you know, well, they did screw up. They should have done it the very first time because the rule allows it. Because when you tell them at the beginning of the game that everybody's legally and properly equipped, anything after that, you technically could go to straight unsportsmanlike and be right by rule. So they gave you a break by sending them off 5, 6 times before they came over and warned you, if it keeps happening, you're going to get it. So by my count, they did everything they could to be a preventative official and to work with you. Now who's the good guy? Who's the good guy? You. I've just given you a tool to be the good guy. They don't like you on Friday night, but when they call me and complain, I can circle back to a tool that they just go, oh, wow, all right, they took care of me. They looked out for me. I'm telling you, it works. Simple communication works. Clear, simple communication works. If it can be fixed easily, send them off. Or don't send them off, sorry. If it can be fixed easily, let them fix it. You think about it. The lineman's shoulder pads are exposed, right? The shirt's all the way down, it's exposed. What have we forever allowed that lineman to do? Fix it. right? And forever allow them to fix it. Why would it be any different with any other piece of equipment that's not worn properly? If they can fix it, let's go. One of the other things, before we get to the pop-up kick, one of the other things we've got is you're going to have these eye shades, right? And Oakley's got that tinted. And I think the NC2A has allowed it now to where they can have that tint from the side. So you look at it directly, it looks clear, but when you look at it from the side, it's got the tint on it. Our rules still don't allow that. So if you look at it, it's got a shade to it from any angle, you need to tell the coach, by rule, he's got to get that off. Okay. I understand when we get to player equipment, there's going to be some players we miss, right? There's going to be a few that we miss. It's okay. It's okay. We miss it. The idea is we're not intentionally missing it. We're not choosing to miss it. 10, 15 players on the same team throughout the course of the first half. That's not, we just missed it. That's, we chose not to address it. The running back wearing a t-shirt down to here, it's a different color, his pants up to here, and a streamer down to his shoe. The running back, we're not missing that. We're choosing to ignore it. The quarterback, whose jersey is tucked in under his shoulder pads and his stomach's exposed, we're choosing to ignore it. There's a difference. I just missed it versus I'm choosing to ignore it. You don't choose to ignore a false start. You don't choose to ignore a pass interference. Don't choose to ignore this. Pop-up kick. Remember, a pop-up kick is one that is driven immediately into the ground by the kicker. And after driving it directly into the ground, it is going up into the air. This is not one that the kicker kicks into the ground immediately and it bounces high. That is an onside kick. That is legal. Okay? This is one that when they first hit it into the ground, that next move of the ball is straight into the air. What's the litmus test? If the defensive team's eyes have to shift upwards when that happens, we got a pop-up kick. That's easy. If it's at a height that requires their eyes to go from here to here, we got a pop-up kick. Because now what do they become? Become defenseless. It's a pop-up kick. What do we do? What are we doing with it? Immediately. Remember, it's directly into the ground. So I am running up and I am going, boom, which means it's going to have to hit somewhere between that tee and a foot from that tee to do what I need it to do. Bam, eye level of the defender on the free kick line goes up, which means that ball is probably 6 to 7 to 8 feet in the air, at least. That's a pop-up kick. Doesn't matter if the ball is going to travel 15 yards or 6 yards. It's a pop-up kick. We kill it immediately. If it bounces twice, what do we got? Got nothing. If I walk up and kick it from underneath, what do we got? Defender has this. R has this. That's their safety net. R chooses not to do this. That's R's choice. When it hits the ground first, R doesn't have a choice to do this anymore. Okay? Understand the difference. Talk about this in pregame. Points of emphasis, flagrant and unsportsmanlike fouls. Remember, unsportsmanlike fouls are non-contact. They are non-contact. At this level, they are non-contact. Where you can get confused is you start looking on TVs on Saturday and you watch these great officials who really are. It gets blurry. What they call unsportsmanlike now versus what they did 15 years ago, it's getting blurry. At our level, an unsportsmanlike foul is a non-contact foul. It is a non-contact foul. I get 2 of those. I get 2 of those. On the second one, what happens to me? I'm ejected. Personal fouls, I get unlimited, provided it's not what? Flagrant. Now, I would tell you that tongue in cheek. Nobody's going to get unlimited. If number 14's got 3 personal fouls in the first quarter, probably you start having a conversation with his coach. Hey, coach, listen, we're going to have to start making number 3's personal fouls flagrant no matter what he does from here on out. You follow me? But not many kids get that because it costs them 15 yards. The coach usually gets pretty furious and says, hey, what are you doing to us? Right? When we talk about flagrant fouls, it needs to be an action that is flagrant, an action that's out of the norm. We're not searching for ejections. We're not searching for reasons to get rid of a kid. It is one where we have no other option. A lot of times that 15 yards is a huge penalty to that team. Huge. That is penalty enough in most cases. Flagrant rises to a level that we don't normally see it. It's extreme. It's violent. It's not needed. It's a safety issue for the kid that received it. Understand the difference. Flagrant should be that 7 to 10 officials, 7 or 8 out of 10 officials would agree that was flagrant. No doubt. Not 50%. 50% is I could have made a better choice. Helping the runner. Where do we go with this? I see my predecessor's about to walk out of the room back there because we've had many conversations about this over the years, and I don't disagree with his statement. Illegally helping the runner to assist forward progress presents a risk of injury to the runner and to others. The additional momentum to a particular offensive player as opposed to the POW swings the competitive balance towards the offense in a manner not intended by the rules. What is that saying? If I'm pushing the tackle who's got his hands on the runner, am I pushing the runner? I'm pushing him into the runner. Now, what is he doing? Is the runner being helped? Yes. The pile is the pile we're stopping. But if that whole pile is a swarm of mosquitoes around your head, and as you move, the pile keeps moving, what's happening? Who's being pushed? The runner. Somebody in there is being pushed. Somebody in there has the football. If I'm pushing the guy who's got the ball, what's happening to him? We're aiding the runner. It's simple. You can't tell me that if I push a guy back here who's got his hands on the runner that I'm not pushing the runner. Well, he's pushing 74. Well, who's 74 pushing? Now, if 74 is standing like this and he's pushing him in the back and his belly's hitting him, he ain't pushing him. But we all know that's not happening. We all know what's happening in that pile. They all got their hands on him and they're all pushing him forward. That's pushing the runner. We can argue this till you're blue in the face, but I'm going to tell you you're wrong. You're pushing the runner. He's pushing the pile. You're not pushing the pile when you're pushing an individual. Who's pushing an individual? It might not be 16 that's pushing the runner, but 74 sure is. Somebody in there is. Can't happen. There's no way they can gain 5 extra yards with people behind them. Yep. It could be a defensive player around. Could be. Could be. But there are obvious situations that. Great point. I can't tell you the answer to that. I can tell you that we've interpreted this the wrong way. I can tell you that we have seen people literally run up behind and put his hands on the runner and aid him, and they say, well, there's a group of players there, he's pushing the pile. No, he's not. He's pushing a runner. If the runner's inside, and you can't see the hands on the runner, and you can't tell the hands are on the runner, you can't call the foul. You're correct. But you can't say, well, he ain't helping the runner. What I'm telling you is you got to start looking harder at that. We got to start looking in there and see if we see the foul. And not just saying, oh, well, that's the rest of the pile, I'm good. We got to see it. We got to look for it. But there are plenty of times, and that's a great question, Mike. It's a tremendous question. But I've sat in the bleachers and I have watched the pile move, and I can tell you, you can tell the runner's being pushed by somebody. You can tell it's happening if you just pay attention to it.
Charlie,
There's times you can't. Yes.
we got another question.
I'm sorry, maybe this is a question he asked, but essentially what you're saying is, if a pile is essentially helping runner in general, the pile in general is illegal, because it would be helping runner. So I just need clarification on that, because I mean, I just don't agree, but I just want to understand that better. Say anyone is touching anyone within the pile, then a pile is essentially illegal.
Not 100%. You gotta see the action.
You got to call the foul.
And they're saying, I don't see the action.
Well, then you don't see the action of the helping the runner, so you can't say the foul occurred. What I'm saying is we've taken the approach the last few years of, well, there's a pile there, there's no way there's a foul.
You just said, I know he's touching.
I know he is, but there's a difference between I know what's happening versus what I see happening. Right? There's a difference. I know that if 74 is getting pushed by 16 and 74 and the runner's in the middle and 74 is behind him, there's a high chance what's 74 doing? He's pushing him too. There's a high chance. But when 16's got 17 here and 4 here and all the defensive players in there, can you see all that happening? No. I'm telling you what the interpretation of it is. You have interpretation, then you have application. You've got to be able to see it happen, right? You've got to be able to know that it's happening. My whole issue is, for the last few years, we've just assumed, well, there's a pile, nothing's happening. It's a pile. That's all they're doing is pushing the pile. If you can see into that pile and see that somebody's got his hands on that runner and everybody's feet are moving and I got my hands on him and I'm pushing him, what do you got? You got helping the runner. But I've watched it to where we've had a pile and the runner's in the back of the pile and the guy's hands on him. They said, well, technically, he's pushing the pile. No, he's not. He's pushing the runner. He's helping the runner. Yes.
And just call what you see.
Oh, what you see. Train wrecks and cars on fire. But what happens is well, what I'm trying to get to here is we have gotten to a point where mindset-wise, we've tried to delineate, well, he's pushing the pile. There's a pile there. It can't be helping the runner. What I'm telling you is, yes, it can be. It can be helping the runner. Just because there's a pile and there's multiple people pushing multiple people doesn't mean there's no helping the runner. It means there can be. That's when we got to focus on what? Is there helping the runner? Not just saying, oh, well, there's no helping the runner because there's a pile. I ain't worried about that. Can there be a face mask in that pile? Yeah. Are you going to look for that? Yeah. So why wouldn't you look for helping the runner? Because what do we know is probably happening? What do we know is probably happening? Helping the runner. But we got to be able to do what? Got to be able to do what? Got to be able to do what? Got to be able to see it. I'm not sitting here telling you today that, hey, you see a pile of people all moving in a swarm, that you definitely have a foul. What I'm telling you is you got to be alert to the possibility there's a foul in there. I got to be able to see it. We've ignored it. Because what we've seen is, oh, there's a pile, we ignore the pile. There's a pile now, we're good. No, we're not. There might be a foul. I've got to focus in further. That makes sense? Clear as mud, right? But I can tell you, I've seen it, train wreck and car on fire, be missed. I've seen it where 74 puts his hands right on 14's back with the ball and push him 3 and 4 yards directly through 2 defenders, and it gets missed. I've seen it where they get grabbed by the waist and pulled by their own player into the end zone. We don't call it. Well, he's going to get in anyway. It's a foul. What I'm telling you is it's happening in that pile. You got to be able to see it happening and flag it. You can't assume it's happening in there, but it's happening in there. What I'm telling you is when you see that pile, don't just assume, oh, there's a pile, we're good, no foul. There's going to be a foul in there probably, if you can see it. Okay.
Whatever the defender is behind running back, driving and trying to pull it backwards away from his goal line. And the offensive player pushes the defensive player in his back. The offense pushes him forward.
I don't think we've got to help in the runner. You got to have your hands on that runner to have an impact on that runner. Because the advantage would be the defense is trying to do the opposite thing. I think we can split hairs on this all day long. The bottom line is pay attention further. The bottom line is that we see it as a pile, and then we've just chosen to say, well, there can't be anything in there because it's a pile now. That's not what the rule says. Yes. I can't hear.
What's the correct call on that? Correct signal for that?
Where's John Price? John Price, what's that signal? Sideline management and control. This is a point of emphasis across the country. You wing officials. This is on you. This is on you. What you allow is going to happen. The biggest complaint that I get from coaches about game management, and they want to blame the referee, and sometimes you can argue the referee's at fault to this too. Why does their coach get to be out beyond numbers every fifth play, and I get stuck back here behind this 2-yard belt all night long? Why? Why is that happening? Why is he always out? Give me an answer to that question that makes sense. Best thing you can tell them is when you meet with them pregame, and you tell them before the game when you get over there is, Coach, look, you see these 2 yards right here? If y'all stay out of that when the ball's live and y'all let me work and you don't get into that, I don't have to ever tell you to step back. We're going to have a great night. I'll be able to answer your questions. I'll be able to communicate clearly, and we won't have any problems. You and your folks start getting into that, we're going to have problems. I'm not going to be as open to answer questions. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to be fine. Have that communication on the front end. This is the expectation. This is what I expect over here. You don't have to be mean about it. Just tell them nicely, hey, coach, listen, work with me. Help me out. Help me out. Some of the sideline management deals with when they have fights and leave the sideline, and we'll talk to the coaches about that. But the reality of it is that when that fight breaks out, what is your job now? To become a what? An observer. Come an observer. Try to catch every number you think happened. Come an observer. Don't become an intermediary and try to get involved and separate people. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get sued. Do the right thing, you're going to get in trouble, even though you're trying to do the right thing, right? Sideline management. I can't answer that question. How do we get there? Authenticating marks. You're going to see 2 different ones. You see the top and the bottom. The bottom is the one they're moving to. Either one's going to be sufficient for the next few years on the footballs. Now, their kicking balls may not have this on it, okay? I tell you that because for those of you that don't know, my son was a quarterback the last few years, and he would take the balls to the officials and say, hey, well, I got to go get our kicking balls over here. And one of them said, what, kicking balls? I mean, our other balls. That's my own son. But anyway, all their balls should have that mark on there. If it doesn't have it, what happens? I don't play with it. I don't get to play with it. All right, there's a few questions that were asked prior to this. There's no chance I'm seeing that screen right there. First question, I'm going to read it because there's zero chance you're seeing it back there. More variety of officials that can be assigned to late round playoff games and state games. Can district directors have any say in the matter? Yes, your district directors have plenty of say. They can promote the change in the bylaws that are in your mechanics manual that gives advice to the high school league on how to do it. Right now, it's pretty clear on what they expect. Does it mean it's right? I don't know. But until there's a change to the rating process, what really puts you in the category to be selected is how well you do on a test. When I say that, I say how well you do on that test. Because if I gave you a different test with 30 different questions on it, you might do a little bit better, or you might do a little bit worse. And if I took 3 questions off and put 3 different ones on there, you might do 6 points better. Or 6 points worse. If you guess different on a couple questions, you might do 6 points better or 6 points worse. See what I'm getting at? I would love to get to a point where we have a pool of officials towards the end of the season that all are in this bucket to be selected. And we have ratings and we have reviews and we have film and we have all these things that we kind of go through and we say, okay, these guys are doing a great job. And if we had a bucket of, say, 10 referees and all 10 referees were doing great all year long, then it becomes pretty clear. We just follow the rating system straight down. But if referee 4 and 7 are not doing great, we skip them. Makes sense, right? What happens to the team that's preseason number 1 if they lose 5 games? They're not number 1 anymore, right? Did they play great in those 5 games? Probably not. They lost. What happens if a team is 14 or 13-0 and loses in the semifinals? They're out. They're out. What if they lose in the second round? They're out. We were preseason number 1. We were number 1 when the year was over. But we fumbled 3 times, had 6 personal fouls, and 4 holding penalties that the referee called all them touchdowns back. Right? What happened? They lost. They lost. If you think about it that way, should we look at it the other way? I don't know the answer to that. I think we should. I don't have the ability. I do have the ability to do it. I just don't want to step out there and do it right now, if that makes sense. Because what we have is a great partnership with your association and our league office to where these are the recommendations by your association, and to work together, we try to honor those recommendations to the best of our ability. Does that make sense? Now, I do have the ability and the power and the authority to say I'm doing it my way. I don't like doing it that way. I don't like being a dictator. What's that? I got you. Church is at what, 8 in the morning? I'll get you home. Next question, and these 2 I think I've already answered, but the rules clearly states that a player must be, eye shade must be a single solid stroke. Entire face is painted. I think we talked about this, how we'd like to handle this, right? Now, if this is a situation where they've got, the eye face black all over their face, coaches told us before the game, yes, they're all legally and properly equipped. By rule, what happens here? What could happen right away? Unsportsmanlike on the coach, right? Well, what we're going to take the ability to assume is that the coach didn't realize that Charlie, after he told us that, went back in the locker room right before the game started and took his eye black out and painted his whole face up because he wanted to be different. There's kids that will do that. They will go back in the locker room. I'm telling you, they will switch pants on the coach. Coach will hand them a large. They'll go in and switch with a younger kid and get a meeting. So we're going to give the coach the benefit of the doubt that that's what happened and tell them, look, send them off. If face paint is still all over your kid's face, the next one we got to do this. Make sense? And then the last one is significant changes to 823, 824, and 825. I think we covered that out the gate with succeeding spot. Okay, I think that's it. Last thing I will tell you is what I want, and I haven't even mentioned this to directors this year, what I want is I want when the game's over is I want the crew to look at their watch when they get in the locker room. When you're sitting down and you're untying your shoes, somebody look at your watch. If that watch is 3 hours beyond where the game started, I want that crew, as you are undressing, to reflect together on why. Why did that happen? Maybe it's your fault. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's, hey, we had 47 fouls and 47-45 football game, and they had a 15, 20-minute halftime, and a lot of factors, right? But the question needs to be asked of yourselves is why? Could we have done anything to make it faster? And a real quick story before I get David out to church here in a minute. Last year I went to a game, not my kids' game, to preference that. I went to a game. It was 7-0 at halftime. 7-0 at halftime. At the end of the third quarter, it was 7-7. At the end of the game, it was 21-7. When Charlie walked on the field, to walk across the field to go home, I looked at my watch, it was 10:40. You make that make sense. Make that make sense. So I said, boy, that took a long time. I went and looked at the fouls. It's like 17 fouls total. 21-7 ball game. How did that happen? That's the conversation we've got to start having. I hear all the time, the games are long, the games are long, the games are long. Let's find out why. If we get north of 3 hours, have that brief conversation. Guys, why did this happen? What could we have done better? Well, on 11 of the 15 fouls we had, we probably shouldn't have stopped the game for 5 minutes to talk. It's a good start. That makes sense? So I want us to be deliberate when the games are over to have those conversations. Why did it take us so long? Any questions? Yes.
Same this year, last year.
What's that?
Same.
Oh, I think he got a raise. I think he got a raise. I think there's a raise. Don't quote me on that. I think. All right, we'll have our stuff published tomorrow, but we did stuff a couple weeks ago. I think you get one. If not this year, next year's your step increase. If not this year. But yeah, all levels, 1A through 5A is the same rate. That rate may have gone up. I want to say I think it did, but if not this year, that rate goes up next year. Any questions? What's that? No, we haven't made a change to that. We've had a lot of change in our office the last few months. And some of the things we probably would have had time to sit down and look at, we've really, honestly, to be fair, it's been chaos. It's still chaos right now. So much so, I think I got 2 questions written on your test, and I got a lot of work to do next week. But it's just been very chaotic. But that's a fair question. It's something we've had conversation about. And I told a group last week, the basketball directors last week, you look at it, the federal mileage is almost doubled where it was 12 years ago. The federal mileage. We start getting into federal mileage rates, that thing goes up and then all of a sudden the rates could change every week. So we've got to figure out something that puts us in a possible opportunity to step. Now, the issue is we don't come back and take money off mileage. If the gas prices rolled out $1.20 tomorrow, we wouldn't come back and say, hey, gas is down now, you get 30 cents a mile. So we've got to be very careful of how and why we change that rate.
One question going back to the constant uniform issues. And if I heard you correctly, we were going correctly to possible going to the coach, unsportsmanlike conduct if necessary. Is the intermediary, what I would call an intermediary file of a delay of game, something you want to, is that an option, or you want to keep it the way you described it?
I want to keep it the way I described it. I don't believe, and there's some argument across the country, that delay of game is enforceable through that. There are some states that do that. There are some states that are experimenting. There's some states that experiment with the step process, kind of like, we used to do with equipment. But I don't think so. I think we send them off. We send them off because it takes less time to send them off than it does to stop, penalize, move balls back. If it gets ridiculous, and I'm going to leave the word ridiculous into your decision-making and judgment, right? Then then we tell the coach, listen, the next one, we're going to have to assess unsportsmanlike foul on you. We're going to move on. It will get fixed. It'll get fixed. Anything else? Yes.
Darker talk about a maximum number of games per week.
Yes. It should be in a settings you can have for yourself. I don't know exactly where to tell you it is, Dave, because arbiters changed so much on y'all's end. I couldn't tell you, but there is a setting in there you could set when you start setting your mileage rates and your blocks and those things. There's something in there for games per week. Anything else? We good? All right. Listen, I really appreciate y'all very much. You do, seriously now, you do, and you know this, you do a thankless job. There are very few people that walk off that field on Friday night and tell you what? Thank you. So you know by that right there, your job is thankless. Just continue to do what you do, and we appreciate you very much. Thank y'all. Have a great day. Safe travels.